Chris Carter here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Today on Friday, we're going to go over an aspect of the offense I do think the Steelers need to free up a little bit more for Justin Fields, and that involves the things that he can call at the line of scrimmage. We'll talk about that, all our Week 5 picks, and our final breakdown of Steelers Cowboys, all here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things in the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes, as well as our bonus content. Thank you for making us your first listen every day, because we're your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the number one sportsbook in America. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com today to get started. All right, Steelers fans, we talked a bit about this on yesterday's Crossover Thursday episode with Marcus Mosher, talking about the Cowboys and how the Cowboys, like the Colts, are one of the worst rushing defenses in the NFL. Granted, the Colts pretty much took away the Steelers' run game until they were well behind and they were kind of running in with Cordero Patterson, but the Steelers want to be a downhill running team that establish it early and wear you down with it throughout the game so that it makes it easier to throw the ball. But the Colts were run blitzing him, and with the Cowboys' current predicament on their defense, where you have two superstar type of defensive front guys in Parsons and Lawrence out for the game, they're going to have to try something else. And that might mean even with, those guys, even with those guys, they weren't a good run defense. That might mean they're going to try to do what the Colts did. They're going to try to send the run blitz. And that was something that I went into the Steelers locker room and Steelers practice on Thursday with kind of a point to figure out, hey, now that you've had time to go over the film, what did you see here? So we're going to play clips of different people answering these questions. And I think it gives us some interesting information to chew on going into this game. Now, one thing that we've been talking about when it comes to Justin Fields is, can the offense open up for him? But that is such a broad term, because when we say open it up, does it simply mean letting him throw the ball or letting him throw the ball down the field? Or does it mean letting, changing up the play calls, giving him the chance to change the play calls to the line of scrimmage to call out what he sees? So I went in Thursday with the idea like, hey, you know what? Some of those run blitzes, there were tells. Like, there were obvious tells where, like, hey, this corner was creeping up, this safety was creeping up. These linebackers were in a position where, like, if they were going to drop back into coverage, they would have to do some serious work because they are really pressing the line of scrimmage. So I went in, I was like, I wonder if Justin Fields has the liberty to change whatever. Now, some people, a lot of times teams will cover this up, but listen to Justin Fields when I ask him about that and how he talks about a few other things in the offense and how they plan to counter things and other things that they're working on. But here was Justin Fields in the Steelers locker room Thursday.
Justin, Najee was saying that there were a lot of instances he felt that they were stacking the box in the run game. When you're in those situations, how much freedom do you have as the quarterback to either alert into a different concept or alert into a different play or something along those lines?
It just depends on the play call. But if we have a run play call, then we're going to stick with that play call. But one thing I'm not going to do is, our offense doesn't roll like that. I put my full trust in Arthur to, get us in the right play at the right time. So whatever he calls, I'm going to roll with it. But there are some plays that I can check into a different play versus a different coverage or a certain look. But most of our run plays, there's some cans on it depending on what look we get. But so it really just depends on the play calls, to be honest with you.
Justin, the Colts run blitz you guys a lot with the different pressures they were sending, which wasn't something that they've done a lot this season. How do you guys counter that in the future when teams are trying to do that, and maybe different ways that you guys can respond to that?
Just anticipate them situationally. Know their patterns, study their patterns, and kind of anticipate that using snap count a little bit to try to get it uncovered a little bit earlier. But if not, then you just got to adjust on the run and get the play started, at least in the run game.
Justin, how do you take your good performance you had in the second half from the last game and start fast for the game against Dallas?
You just can't warm up to it. Like Coach T always says, you can't wait for the first thing to punch you in the mouth before you really get going. So we want to come out the gate rolling, coming off the ball with energy, get the run game going early, and play off of that, to be honest with you. So, like I said, just having that same mindset coming into the game and not really warming up to competition, as Coach C always says.
So let's go back to the very start of the answer to that question, of his first question, when he says, if it's a run play, yeah, I'm sticking with that. I think that's very interesting for the Steelers to put themselves in that situation, because let's say it's a run play and the Colts are all over it. So presumably, now let's play this clear, and I'm gonna play a clip from Arthur Smith when I asked him about this, and he kind of played it off. He didn't want to give too much information on how the Steelers handle this. He kind of talked about, audibles in a general sense in that situation. But I think a lot of people, when I say the word audible, or when someone says the word audible, they think like Madden, like, you're switching the entire play around. You're just moving everything to stuff. That's what you do. That's not normally what's going on there. An audible technically is just really changing anything. Like, are you switching the protection? Is that a check at the line? Are there certain things you're looking for? Now, there are times when a quarterback has complete command of the offense. He can be like, hey, we're switching into this whole other play here. This is what we're doing. But especially when new quarterbacks are in new offenses, you're going to see that limited more and more. And I think that's what's going on with Justin Fields. I do think it's very telling that he said, like, hey, there's every play you have certain things that you can check into or switch into, but on run plays, he's gonna trust that Arthur Smith's call there. And that's definitely a big tell as far as why the Steelers were running right into brick walls a bit on Sunday against the Colts. And I think that's something that Arthur Smith, Mike Tomlin, this offense needs to let Justin Fields open up a little bit. Now, part of this also might be a part of their precaution, because they're saying, hey, you know what? When you call those audibles, does that open you up to more mistakes because there's more communication that you have to go through? This is also a very young offensive line, so maybe doing a whole bunch of switches at the line of scrimmage could cause a whole lot of confusion, and maybe you want to stick to that path. Maybe that's the argument. But I do think the Steelers put themselves in a position where it's like, yeah, you better anticipate what they're doing going into with the upcoming play call, because if they're completely run blitzing and you don't have a check out of that run, but maybe a check into a different run that you think might take advantage of it, I think that can lead to some of the problems the Steelers have faced. Here was Arthur Smith when I tried to ask him about, the liberty that Justin Fields has at the line of scrimmage.
As far as Justin Fields' freedom to kind of make adjustments at the line and switch plays if he sees a run blitz coming that you guys need to counter, what ways do you guys have to improve in that department when teams are trying to do things with the Colts that might not fit the script that you guys understood coming into the game?
There's not anything where you say, hey, let's go run into an ambush like that. No offensive been a part of it has ever been that hard-headed. So there's a lot of, and without talking too much of the scheme, because I'm sure Dallas has some analyst or some quality control coach listening to this, so you don't want to give too much away. But every offense has been a part of, you're trying to take advantage of the looks you're given, and how do you do it? Sometimes it's run to run, and maybe a run, you have an alert, pressure thing. Those are all practice. So you're never just going up there with a cheesecake factory menu, and he's just, hey, go here you go, buddy. Go take it, call what you want. I mean, that's not fair to the player, the clock's going, whatever. So, but then again, it's all the preparation as you get into it week to week, and guys get more comfortable, and that's what we practice and what we're working for.
So right there, Arthur Smith kind of delays things. I even had to shorten down his response because he kind of addressed the history of audibles and things like that. I was like, I wasn't trying to get all that. I was just trying to ask how you guys have to improve, Justin Fields, what freedoms he has to call at the line of scrimmage. But to me, that tells a very clear thing. The Steelers, there are certain things of this offense that they're trying to that they're still trying to unlock. And like he's saying, hey, they're still learning things, and maybe more things are coming. Maybe there will be some checks into the pass from the run game in that situation. But look for that to be a big, big tell of how this game could go. If the Steelers try to establish this run game early like they have in their last 4 games and it doesn't work, or the Cowboys are selling out to stop the run and said, please throw on us. Please try to throw on us. Will the Steelers do that? That could be a part of the situation. I asked Najee Harris about this because he's the running back, and I thought it was interesting how he was like, yep, but I'm not telling you. And then I also asked him about being a lead blocker, because that's also been a thing for that he's done for Justin Fields. But here was Najee Harris when I asked him. I was really trying to get this from anybody on offense who was willing to talk about this situation, and got some different responses. Here's Najee Harris.
Does that affect Najee? The Colts used a lot of run blitzes against you guys. How do you guys counter that? I mean, you guys have a lot of personnel with the different skill sets. How do you guys counter that better?
I mean, don't want to go into detail, man. I don't like saying too much to the media, man. I say what I with the team, but we have to do a few things. We can do a little bit more, but like I said, I don't want to say too much.
What's it like lead blocking for Justin?
Y'all saw me lead blocking right now? Hey man, I put my foot in the pile. That's what Mike T said. You put your foot in the pile. So lead blocking for Justin is whatever can open him up and doing something else that he's good at. Than passing the ball, he's also good at running his feet. So him having the trust that we're going to block for him, as much as I have trust that the line's going to block for me, just to show that we're willing to do whatever to win. And I'm excited to even go in there and put my face in the pile and block for him.
So, the run blocking thing I thought was interesting because I did like that the Steelers used him as a lead blocker for Justin Fields as a very creative way to catch defenses off guard and maybe give yourself an extra man to win win in that kind of a matchup. But I think that this leads me to a certain thing that I'm watching for on Sunday. The Cowboys are going to send run blitzes. Like, they are not going to sit back with their problems on personnel right now. They have to be the aggressors, because if they let the Steelers dictate the pace on offense with how hurt up they are on defense, they're going to put themselves behind the eight ball. So instead, they need to counter that. I don't know if they will for sure, but if I'm the Steelers, I have to be expecting that. And if I'm expecting that, and I think this is part of what Justin Fields' answer also went into, he's like, hey, part of how we counter that is we anticipate it better. We practice, we get ready for it, and we say, hey, this is coming. And maybe the answer isn't necessarily switching out from a run to a pass, but switching, hey, maybe we switch which direction we're going because we see the blitz coming off the right edge, and maybe that's going to leave the left edge open. Maybe there's a trap that we can run that can fool a defensive end to come up field a little bit, and then he gets destroyed by a wham blocker of Darnell Washington coming down the line. Those are the things that I think that you could see improvement on this week if the Steelers are doing that. So be on the lookout for that. That's something I think that could be really interesting to watch Sunday night at Acrisure Stadium. I'll be there. Let me know if you will be as well. We got to take a break. When we come back, I'll get into our Week 5 picks, and then, of course, we'll get into talking Steelers, Cowboys, my final predictions there, all here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I want to remind you this show is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch your winnings roll in. PrizePicks is the fun new daily fantasy game that everyone needs to start playing right now. PrizePicks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with any injury insurance policy. Your lineups stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, PrizePicks keeps your lineup alive. And now, on PrizePicks, you can win up to 100 times your money with as little as making 4 correct picks. PrizePicks includes NFL, NBA, MLB, NHL, college sports, and so much more. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports today. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL. Use code LockedOnNFL and you'll get $50 instantly when you play just $5. That's code LockedOnNFL to receive a $50 bonus for just playing $5. PrizePicks. Run your game. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter. Let's get to the picks this week. Also, we do apologize. We could not get Jenna Harner on for this Friday episode. She was very busy today, as she is. But if you want to check both of us out, because we always work with each other every week, Friday night, 11:15 p.m., we will be doing our high school football highlight show of Skylights on Channel 11 WPXI. You can see us doing our work there. A lot of fun to do that with all the time. All right, let's get to some picks. First, as always, we got to acknowledge the Pick'em League. Right now, I'm sitting 36th place. I'm up there. I'm in the top 10th percentile. There you go. With 39-24 is my record. But in first place, 5 games ahead of me, is Mr. Ryan 229 picks 1. I don't know why y'all do that picks 1 thing. Why can't y'all just fix your names? That's simple. Just take the picks 1 thing out. Anyways, but Mr. Ryan's got 44 correct picks. He's 44-20 on the season. Got some other people in there that are right behind him. So shout out to everyone who participates. There's over 350 people playing in this each week. We appreciate all of you playing that. So a shout out to all of y'all. But let's get into the picks this week. As always, The odds, ends, and lines brought to you with each matchup are from FanDuel.com, the #1 sportsbook in America. As always, we skip over Thursday Night Football because this is the Friday episode, and I'm recording during the game. But let's get to what is a big matchup, actually. New York Jets at Minnesota Vikings, a bit of an old school rivalry between Aaron Rodgers and the Vikings. He played them all the time, but the Vikings are 2.5-point favorites. They came out the gate 4-0 at home. They're at the money line -138, over under at 40.5. I have the Vikings winning this game. I think they've actually played pretty well on both sides of the ball. Sam Darnold's been, playing to their system. They have playmakers at wide receivers. Jordan Addison is healthy now, and their defense has been getting after it. When you look at the defenses around the league that are making the most plays, the Steelers are number 2 right now. The Chargers are back in number 1. The Broncos are number 3. Funny enough, the Steelers have played both of those teams, but the number 4 defense right behind them is the Vikings. But guess who's the number 5 defense? It's the New York Jets. A lot of fun stuff there. I think this is going to be a good game, but I'm taking the Vikings there. Moving right along to your next game. This is that's also games at 9:30 because that's in another country. But the Baltimore Ravens, 1:00 at the Bengals. This is going to be a game that I think a lot of Steelers fans are going to be watching at 1:00 while they wait for their Sunday night football game. The Ravens are 2.5-point favorites over the Bengals. This is kind of important, though, for the Bengals to kind of hit on because if they lose this game, they'll be 0-1 in division. But, of course, they'll then be 1-4 to start the season. And that means they'll be 2 games behind the Ravens, 2.5 technically there. If the Steelers find a way to win Sunday night, they would be 3 games behind the Steelers. And, that would just be a rough spot for them. But I think the Ravens do win. I like the Ravens defense. I like the way that they beat the tar out of the Bills last week. And I think the Bengals defense is Swiss cheese. They're in for a rough day. I think the Ravens win on the road in Cincy, and everyone's looking around what's going on in Bengals land. Let's go to another game here, switching conferences. The Carolina Panthers are at the Chicago Bears. Bears 3.5-point favorites. I thought the Panthers might do win the Bengals last week. I was wrong, and so they lost that one. So do I dare double down on them? I do not. I'm going with the Bears at home. I think Caleb Williams gets the dub here. With the additions they have on the Bears roster, I think that they have enough to win. I think the Carolina Panthers are a mess. The Bears aren't exactly a really good team or even a good team at this point, but I think that they'll be able to clean up at home against the Panthers. Sticking with the 1:00 games, we got an AFC East showdown. The Dolphins at the Patriots. Patriots 1.5-point favorites at home over the Dolphins here. This is going to probably be an ugly game. I am taking the Patriots because they're at home. I haven't trusted much of what I've seen out of the Dolphins. I think they're reeling right now. I think the Patriots, if they can just play at home, keep it a close game, they'll find a way to win. So I'm sticking with the Patriots here. This next game, though, I think could be very interesting for everyone to keep their eyes on in the 1:00 slate. It's the Bills at the Texans. Now, the Bills were looking like maybe they should be the favorites this year because they were just bulldozing over everybody. They were the #1 offense in the NFL. And then they ran into the Ravens and got utterly smacked. And that was a tough one. Now, the Bills right now still have the #2 offense in the NFL. They're putting up a lot of points, only behind the Saints right now. So there's that. But this is a Texans team too. They're at home. The Texans, they haven't started off as red hot as I thought that they would in this season. They're 3-1, but they aren't. Their offense isn't lighting it up the way I thought. Their offense right now is averaging a single point more scored per game than the Pittsburgh Steelers. If you had told me that, I would have said like, "Hey, the Steelers must be doing something great," because I think the Texans offense are about to take off this year. So with all that being said, I think the Bills get back on track. I think they go into Houston. They handle their business. I think they've been playing some good football. I think that they get back on track and get the win there. Next game is the Indianapolis Colts at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, the Colts are going into this game as actual underdogs, according to FanDuel. The Jaguars are 2.5-point favorites at home, but I'm taking the Colts. The Jaguars have been a complete mess. They're 0-4. They were very close to winning last week, and I think maybe that's where some people are hanging up on, like, oh, maybe they could do it. I look at the Colts, and I think, hey, they're going to be able to build off some things that they did last week. They'll find a way to get the win. Colts win in Jacksonville. That's a good way to beat the spread there. Sticking with 1:00 games, another game, their last 1:00 game here. Another matchup that I think Steelers fans are going to have their eyes on are the Browns at the Commanders. Now, the Commanders have come out and they have truly impressed, I think, between all the people that of all the teams. I said the number 1 offense with the Saints, the number 2 offense with the Bills. Guess what's number 3? Oh yeah, it's the Washington Commanders and Jaden Daniels. Now, I'm not putting him in MVP conversations like some people are, because that's just complete and wholly ridiculous. But I do think that this is a chance for them to shine. They're against a Browns defense that has been meh so far this year. And if you remember, even last year when the Browns defense was all that, they were all that at home, and then meh away. They're away again. I think the Commanders are able to get the dub here. They win, and they'll even cover with their 3-point spread here given by FanDuel. Let's get to the 4:00 games. Niners at home are home favorites, 7.5 points. I think that the Cardinals keep it close to cover, but I think the Niners win. They were struggling early. They'll figure it out. They'll rally and get the job done here. Moving on to the AFC West here. The Broncos host the Raiders, and the Broncos are 2.5-point favorites on FanDuel. I'm taking the Broncos and the points. I think they've actually been doing some really good things as far as how you want them to play, and how you want them to play. And we talked earlier, they're the number 3 defense in the NFL right now, based off of how they've been able to defend the field. I think that's really encouraging for them. Now, their offense, leaves something to be desired at times, but I look at this team and I think like, hey, you know what? They're making it work. They're staying competitive. I think it's a good sign for the Steelers, like, hey, that they beat that team and kind of handled their business against them. So I think that the Broncos, they're not world beaters. They're not going to do a whole lot this year, but I think the Raiders, they got a lot of problems going on. They got Devontae Adams drama going on. Give me the Broncos at home, winning at Mile High. Moving right along, Rams hosting the Packers. The Packers, though, 3-point favorites, and I will take the Packers plus the points. I think the Packers defense, they are right now leading the NFL in turnover differential. They're doing a great job at that. I think this is just one of those not so great years for the Rams. Give me the Packers all the way here. Next up is your last of your 4:00 games here. The Seahawks hosting the Giants. The Seahawks are 6.5-point favorites. This is my survivor pick of the week. By the way, I am down 2 strikes in all my survivor leagues. It is insane. And those 2 strikes were because I picked the Bengals in week 1 to beat the Patriots, and I picked the Browns in whatever week it was they were playing the Giants. So that was stupid on my part to ever believe in Ohio teams getting the job done in situations that they should. But I'm picking the Seahawks. I actually really like the way the Seahawks are playing. I thought they were really good in the primetime game that we saw this past week. I think Geno Smith is making some really good plays. This defense will do enough to win. The Giants, they're a befuddled mess. I'm sure if Jenna Harner was here, she'd agree with me as the loyal Giants fan that she is, but the ever realist that she is as well. Of course, we're skipping Sunday Night Football because that's the Steelers game. We'll cover that in the next segment here. Let's talk about the Monday Night Football game, which could be the game of the week, even though it's a decent spread here of 5.5 points favorites for the Chiefs at home against the Saints. At some point, the Chiefs have to lose. They're not going to go undefeated this season. I don't think this is one of their better teams. But at the same time, I look at how they play, and I wonder, can the Saints be the team that gets it done? They are right now the number 1 offense with scoring 31.8 points per game. That's they're doing the doggone thing. The Chiefs, they're right in the middle of the NFL at 23 points per game, but you look on the flip side of this, and you look at defense. The Chiefs and the Saints, they're right in line with each other. The Saints have allowed 17.5 points per game. The Chiefs have allowed 18 points per game. But I do think it helps them being an Arrowhead. That home environment will help them out. They'll be able to manage it a lot better. I know that they're missing Rashee Rice. I think this is a Xavier Worthy week. I picked him up on a lot of my fantasy teams. I drafted him super late in a lot of leagues because I thought that he was going to eventually be a big factor. I'm thinking that he is in this game. The Chiefs win at home. I'll say the Saints cover, but the Chiefs will win at home. There's my pick there. So there's all my picks outside of Steelers Cowboys. Who do I pick? Steelers Cowboys. Find out next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter will be right back. But first, I want to remind you, this show is also brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the number 1 sportsbook in America. A reminder, when you go to FanDuel, you can bet on all the games, not just football, not just the NFL, not just college football, but NBA, NHL, MLB, all those sports coming back, Major League Baseball well into playoffs. You can also bet on player stats projections, all the different things that are there. There's so many ways to win, and including the Steelers game, which has been interestingly staying at the same line all week long. The Steelers came into the week 1.5-point favorites. They are still that as I record this Thursday night. 11. They're 1.5-point favorites. Their money line is -136. The money line for the Cowboys +116. Over under at 43.5. It started the week off at 42.5. Over under in the 40s. That's been a rare sight for the Steelers this year. But hey, it's FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Go to FanDuel today and you can make your bets on the Steelers game and so much more. And right now, if you're getting started with FanDuel, if this is your first ever bet that you're going to make, any bet of $5 or more will get you $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place that first bet of $5 or more. That's $200 of free bets now that you can use today for new customers when you bet just $5 only on FanDuel.com. Just visit FanDuel.com today to download America's #1 sportsbook. All right, we're back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. It's time to get into how I see this game playing out. This right now is the Steelers team that I think has the chance to put a serious hurting on the Cowboys if they do their jobs. That if they do their jobs is such a big thing to underline in this game, because part of doing their jobs, I think, will be to come out. The Cowboys are going to have a plan to try to take away what the Steelers have wanted to do in their 3 wins and what they tried to do last week. Do not let them do that. Set the early tone. Put this team, put the Cowboys behind early, and then you can get the ball rolling in your favor. I don't think the Cowboys will be much of a comeback team if you do that. They do have talent in Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and they're going to be able to get those guys. But I think that even last year when Joey Porter was a young cornerback, when they were facing like one of these top-tier wide receivers, they were able to find plans to neutralize him. It wasn't simply just, hey, Joey Porter, just go take over that guy. You're going to shut him down. It wasn't just that. It was a collective plan. And I think this week they'll have a collective plan for how they want to handle CeeDee Lamb in this situation. They'll also need to get after Dak Prescott. Big thing to watch here, though, Nick Herbig, limited in practice on Thursday. Not a good sign for his participation. If he's a full participant Friday, that'll change that my tune there, and then you'll be back. But if he doesn't play, they're going to need Jeremiah Moon to get active off of injured reserve. They're going to need the Marvin Leal to be there. They're going to need help on that edge opposite of TJ Watt. And that also means they're probably going to start throwing. If I'm the Cowboys, I'm throwing everything I can at TJ Watt to stop him from being the game wrecker. So key things for this game, I think the Steelers need to be mindful of on both sides of the ball. One, you gotta actually pressure Dak Prescott this game. You do that and you get after him and you actually bring him down. You'll start to get those wins. But I think on offense, it's what I said at the top of the show. If they come out, do try to establish the run. Don't abandon the run. That would be silly. I think that you've invested a lot in trying to develop that run game. But if the Cowboys are showing that they're willing to test their mettle against yours and just keep run blitzing and saying, hey, if you want 3 yards in a cloud of dust, we're happy to play that game too. Don't run right into it, especially when this is going to be yet another offensive line configuration this year. Because remember, Isaac Seumalo hasn't played yet. Mason McCormick's most likely going to be at right guard. There's so much newness to this offensive line. Make it easier on them. Have some things at the line of scrimmage where like you're lining up in maybe formations that you normally run out of, and it's actually a pass play that you're setting up to get a quick look for Justin Fields, or maybe using Justin Fields to run. But bottom line, keep this Cowboys defense on its heels. Do not let them set the tone early and then clog things down. And then all of a sudden you're scrambling for answers in the middle part of the game. And while the Cowboys are like, okay, we're in this, we've settled down. We're the ones that are controlling the pace here. You're at home. Play like you're at home. Be confident. Still defer the opening kickoff if you win the toss. Put your defense on the field, but the defense has to come correct. They have to watch how CeeDee Lamb is going to be moved all across the field. We talked about this with Marcus Mosher. And Terrell Austin, by the way, also said Joey Porter Jr. they're not planning on having him follow CeeDee Lamb around. But part of that's because CeeDee Lamb lines up the slot all the time. He moves everywhere in the formation. That's an extra problem there. I think the Steelers are going to be smart by saying, hey, you know what? If he lines up outside with Joey Porter Jr., great. If he lines up on the other side with Dante Jackson, fine. But bottom line is there's going to be a safety with their eyes on him at all times. And if he lines up in that slot, let it be Beanie Bishop or Deshaun Elliott who's there. Minka Fitzpatrick's job is to keep an eye right there and say, this guy won't beat us. Those have to be the things that the Steelers do in this game. But do they win this game? That's a big question. If you were listening to our crossover Thursday episode, Marcus Mosher of Locked On Cowboys did not sound too confident about the Cowboys' ability to rally with the injuries that they have right now, and I happen to agree. I think the Steelers right now, they have their fair share of injuries, but the Cowboys' injuries are just woof. They are rough. And I think that they're going to have a lot to recover from. I think that they're going to make some plays in this game, but I think this is a week the Steelers defense gets back on track. They're able to get the run game going in the game. I think that they'll also be, Justin Fields will also be able to hit on some big plays in this game to kind of balance things out. I don't think the Steelers blow these guys out of the water, but I do think that they win 27-17 Steelers, probably a late touchdown that pushes the game further away. With 5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, that seals the deal for the Steelers to win this game. But I do think it'll be a fun game. Steelers Cowboys, great brand in the NFL, two of the crown jewel organizations of the league, facing off in primetime football. You gotta have it if you're the NFL in a big situation like that. But hey, again, let me know if you're going to be there. I'll be there. I'm always in the press box at home games here covering the Pittsburgh Steelers. Thanks you so much for tuning into the Locked On Steelers podcast on this Friday episode. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. Read my work at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com. Find me here on the Locked On Steelers podcast every Monday through Friday on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this channel to get all of our daily Monday through Friday episodes. We're back Sunday night, giving our recap of what happened on Sunday Night Football right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.